Hey everybody, we're live and hope everyone is well. It's 12:07 in the East and it is 9:07 in the West. Joseph, how you doing? Welcome.
I'm good. How are you?
Hope everyone is well. It's 12:07 in the East and it is 9:07 in the West. Joseph, how you doing? Welcome.
I'm good. How are you?
I like to do that sometimes. Earlier today, and I didn't discover this until uh, just before firing this up, our colleague Richard Hake had made a vlog here, a live vlog. Maybe you participated in it. I don't know, about the matter that I'm going to talk with you and Joseph about right now, and that's the news that for the past 2 years, Carolyn Goodman, the good mayor of Las Vegas, had been uh, talking with the Oakland Athletics uh, about relocating, and she revealed that. And so I believe that, well, I have my beliefs, but let's listen to, just to open this up, let's have just a peek at what Richard Hake was saying about about this issue earlier today on his live stream, which he actually did. Looks like he did out from the Coliseum itself. So let me call up that vlog live stream so that we can all have a gander at what Richard said to set this conversation, excuse me, and move forward. And it is okay. Here's talk relocation. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. And that's it. All right, there. Okay. Hey, Excel Generations, he says, our chance of keeping the A's are slim now, right? Since A's can, well, yeah, I mean, they are. Now, I'm going to say something to you before I continue. I'm not into predicting. The reason I'm not is because I know how to do these projects. What I'm going to tell you is what was done right and what was done wrong, because I have 30 years of experience at this. My first job out of grad school was with the Oakland Redevelopment Agency. My first sub job was literally working behind EB Mudd's back at the behest of Ezra Rapport, who wanted me to move large and small pipes, not myself, but get the necessary people to do it. Oh, yeah, we did lose sight. Hold on a second. I'm back. That what happened was that the computer crashed, and so there it is. The computer crashed, and now we're back. And I don't know that there were any gremlins. I think it's just a power cord that needs to be replaced. Okay, um, but we're back there. Make sure that all that's closed, and okay, here we are. Here we are. And I believe Joseph will come up. Yeah, there it is. Sorry, Joseph.
All right.
Sorry about that.
All right.
Yeah, it happens. It's one of those. I have a Mac that crashes. I believe I got to get a power cord for it tomorrow. Excel generator says, Willie Large Sound. Good evening. Hey, Roland Dubs, how you doing? Says you left off about working for. Yeah. Anyway, what I'm saying is that I'm going to explain to you what's going on, and I'm going to roll out to you the various things that might happen. I don't like predicting. And the reason I don't is I find that in these situations, which have happened, now what, 3 times with me, with the Warriors, the Raiders, and now the A's, there are two types of stories. There's the stories that people engage in when they guess, or they want to wager and bet. And there's the other ones about what the hell is going on, about financing and complications and everything else. I know enough to tell you what people are doing wrong. I know enough to tell you what people are doing right. I know enough to run the project myself. The mayor has not asked me to step in or make a comment. That's the mayor's error. I'm going to continue to say that. And I'm not concerned at this point in my life how anyone feels. There's a lot of wrong that has been done, and what's going on here, I was going to talk about with Richard, so we're going to take a look at that right now, because he really, and I really appreciate the fact that Richard stepped up and made a vlog about it. And he's been our designate anyway. And this is Richard Hake earlier today. And he is not sneezing, folks. He is in the middle of exclaiming. It does look like a sneeze, though, doesn't it? But it's like, achoo. Let's see.
It sounds like, to me, they're going to keep looking even after they've already got something locked in, giving Oakland nothing to trust them on, giving Oakland no foundation to do any sort of anything. Honestly, I wouldn't want to deal with somebody who's like, yeah, I'm talking to some other people. And even if you want to be with me, I don't know if I want to be with you. And that's at least they've had the balls to say it versus what the Raiders did, which was, we were staying in Oakland. We were not talking to anybody else. At least the Raiders or the A's have a little bit more sack. They have a little bit more courage to say what they mean. But even that, it's still been a bunch of lies for the last 2 years. Whether they're rooted in Oakland, I don't know. But those branches sure are reaching over into other places. I mean, I'm having a real hard time with this. I've been an A's fan my whole life. I've been coming to this Coliseum since I was a kid. And I would ride along the BART tracks and on my bike with some buddies of mine, and we get on the BART train in El Cerrito, and we come over here, and we would watch through the slats in the fence back before they built whatever you want to call it, Mount Davis. It's been how I grew up. It's been how my kids grown up. We were here. He was only a few days old, his first trip here, and he loves baseball and he loves the A's. And I know a lot of you guys are like that too. And God, I don't want to hear any more of this, Las Vegas crap, because we've been hearing it for years with the Raiders. Now they want to basically steal the A's from us. And all this kind of just shows how, the A's have just made everybody right. They're talking about relocating. They're going to go do this. They're scamming Oakland. They're doing all these things. And it's like, how can we trust that? why would I want to go put myself on the line for a team that's just going to skip out anyways? We've been wondering what's going on with this at the Coliseum because they want to own it. Why do they want to own it? What do they really want to put here? I've been talking to some folks, and this puts the kibosh on some other stuff going on too. The A's aren't the only one trying to buy Oakland's share of the Coliseum property. We have the African American Sports Entertainment Group who have been trying to work a deal here because they want to try and bring an NFL team back to Oakland. It won't be the Raiders, but they want to bring either an expansion or a relocation team. And they can't do that if the A's are still sitting on this land. There's Dave Stewart's project. He's looking at doing something here. There's another guy whose name totally escapes me, but he was involved in the, I believe it was the Coliseum City idea, and apparently he's wanting in on this deal. So it's not just the A's, but you've got to question what the A's really want to do with it. And we did an interview with Zenny a few months back, talking to Dave Cowell about what he wants to do with the property and how this whole thing is going to go. And I asked him at the end, is there room for more sports in Oakland? Is this still something where we can have football or whatever? And he said he was talking to those guys. And it's funny that also coming out yesterday in an interview, he was saying that if they do this and they do build in Oakland, that there's they don't expect to open till 2027 at the earliest. Even though it's only been basically a year and a half delay in the process, they want to delay the new stadium 3 years, maybe 4 years. I think they wanted to say 2023 completion or 2024. Let's go with 2024, and that's a 3-year extension, maybe 4. The lease at the Coliseum ends by then. What they do after that, I would expect them to keep moving or keep going here at the Coliseum and keep playing. But again, if there's other people who want to develop this property, that's putting the screws to them, and
stop it right there, in fairness to Richard.
Possibly taking those off the table. But if you have no intention of even being here, if you have no intention of staying in Oakland, get out of the whole deal. Just leave us alone. At least we can just say that. If you have no intention of dealing in good faith, let it go. Sell your half of the Coliseum. Let go of this whole Howard Terminal project. Stop. Why are we pushing the city council to do something prematurely? Why do we want to vote for June or July when you're going to be talking to Las Vegas and Portland in November? That doesn't make any sense.
He has a great.
It doesn't give anybody here any good feelings. It doesn't give anybody any sense of hope.
He's got a great point, and it gave me something actually that I feared to think, but I agree with. Why bother talking with them, and why even bother bringing it to council now if we can't trust them? Because you've got you have a situation. Look, if I was mayor and I found out, I told Libby this last week by text. I said, just file an injunction. I repeated that again. And what bothers me is that the mayor is making exactly the same mistakes that she made regarding the National Football League, and she trusts people. She worked with the NFL, but what she did with the A's was she sort of did what she did with the NFL times 2. She was over trusting, and on the other hand, in fairness to a defense of her, she had reason to be because the A's gave all the signals that they were not going to be duplicitous, even making fun of the Raiders for their overtures to Las Vegas and their eventual move. And so here we are, full in our face, pushed to us by Las Vegas Review-Journal through the mayor, I mean, not any bystander, but Carolyn Goodman, the mayor of Las Vegas herself, saying, hey, you know what? We were after them they were talking with us for 2 years. And, hey, how you doing? And then he says, yeah. But my point is that John Marks says the Oakland City Council needs to vote yes now. I think if the Oakland City Council voted now, it would be no, and I wouldn't blame the City Council. First of all, I remind everybody, we're in the middle of a goddamn pandemic, okay? And we're talking about this as if the A's have money. They don't. They have leverage. Really, they don't. And we're talking about this as if they're going to be sellout crowds at baseball. And after this, you know what? I would be surprised if the A's see the same complement of people going to their games. They basically have kicked sand in the face of a region through Major League Baseball. Okay. All right. And they've kicked sand in the face of the region, said, you know, hey, look, we can do anything we want to. And they're doing that at a time when we have a Democratic Congress. We have a Senate that's on the precipice of turning Democrat. You have a lot of people who don't have money. You have a record number of women out of the workforce. You do not have the same political climate in Vegas to get the kind of deal the Raiders got. You don't have Sheldon Adelson back there saying, I will put $650 million in your project. What you have in Las Vegas is you have a lot of smoke and mirrors right now. And I'm not saying that to be derisive of Las Vegas. I actually happen to like Las Vegas, and I happen, to think that they do an aggressive job in economic development. But Las Vegas also is, I've said this before and I'll say it again, it's the place of show me money. In other words, they got money that's showy, but more often than not, it's not substantive. It's not enough to really, like, for example, the bond issue for Allegiant Stadium, that bond issue is, you mark my words, by June, you're going to hear of another drawdown because they have a negative situation of not having enough revenue to cover the bond costs. So guess what, folks? They're having another drawdown. Why? Because there are not enough visitors from overseas, particularly Asia and China, to come to Las Vegas to pay hotel room fees, which then transfer to or become room tax revenue to pay off the bond issue. So, but where we are right now is it's a real gut punch, because you'd like to think that the A's were not the way that they have revealed themselves to be. And the whole idea of being rooted on Oakland is basically now a joke. As I put it, rooted in Oakland, LOL. What do you think, Joseph?
Well, when you talked about that the mayor Goodman had made that statement that she had been talking to the Athletics for the last couple of years, I believe her even prior to her saying that. I knew that was the case because the times I would go to Vegas and visit my sister, I pay attention to what's going on sports media wise, and that was the rumblings over there. Because at that time they kept emphasizing, at least locally, that they build a new AAA stadium in hopes of bringing in a major league team, and then people would whisper, like, maybe the A's. So in order for them to even bring that up, that means somebody was talking about it even back then.
Yeah, and I know that, like, for example, Scott Robeson, the great blogger who has the Las Vegas, Vital Vegas blog and connected Twitter account, had hinted any number of times that something would happen. And Scott's generally, more often than not, he is right. uh, when he makes these predictions regarding development in Las Vegas. So I learned a long time ago to never, I disagreed with him once. Doesn't matter. My whole point is that sure, but I'm not concerned about Las Vegas. What I'm concerned about are the things we can control. You can't control Las Vegas, but you can control your relationship with the A's. And there's the city of Oakland. And all this is happening on Libby's watch. And what Libby is doing in all of this is there's no czar, there's nobody, there's no spokesperson, there's nobody to really guide strategy. There's the mayor. And Libby puts her face out there and she makes statements that are technically inaccurate. And she upsets people. And she is basically doing the same thing this time that she did with the NFL. And so the constant in these behaviors is Mayor Schaap. You can't blame the Warriors on Mayor Schaap, but it was in motion. Libby could have done something to slow it down. Mayor Kwan was also just not. Mayor Kwan was asleep at the wheel, not ready to. She wasn't understanding that the Warriors were acting inappropriately, and she wasn't willing to go after and sue the city of San Francisco. Whereas Ed Lee, who was my client when he was over the Human Rights Commission in 1993, was in-your-face aggressive. We have an example of cities, San Francisco and then Las Vegas, who have been in-your-face aggressive toward Oakland, and Oakland has just simply let it happen, okay? Done nothing. And it's not, we're not always this way. When I was an economic advisor to Oakland Mayor Elihu Harris, we went after Cirque du Soleil. San Francisco had Cirque du Soleil. That was when Cirque du Soleil was brand new as an event. That was a traveling event. And we were envious of San Francisco. So I cold called them, and it turned out that Oakland council member District 4, Dick Spees, was doing the same thing. So we collaborated and we fashioned a plan to get, and we got Cirque du Soleil, which then performed in Oakland for the next 2 years before San Francisco got mad and yanked them back. That's economic development, baby. That's the way it goes, okay? But they didn't think we could do it. We did it and shocked the world. That's what you do. But this group of leaders in Oakland today, they don't think that way. They're afraid of the shadow. They're afraid to be aggressive. They're afraid to fight. No, they'll turn around and they'll say, we got, Town and Country magazine. Who cares? Or something small. But we have a track record such that since 1998, we have not completed a single big public project in Oakland. All right. We don't have a convention center to speak of. We have one, but it's like teeny, 150,000 square feet. Come on. We've got our airport is largely the same as it was 10 years ago, 11. We've had upgrades here and there, but nothing, new other than the people mover system. And that took a long time to get going. But even then, that's just 2 mile stretch, right? Okay. That's it. We got a mile.
And then I think, according to Richard, his video is the healthcare situation is abysmal in Oakland.
Yeah.
He made reference to his mother's situation.
Okay. Did you hear his entire video? Because I only heard part of it. I didn't hear the rest of it.
Well, the tail end that I saw, because by the time I clicked on, it was already midway. So I guess when his mother, who I guess subsequently had passed away, was having a heart attack. And if he's listening, he could always chime in. But there wasn't any facilities for her to go. She had to go to Martinez for emergency, to the city of Martinez, which he claims was 20 minutes away. And unless you were a Kaiser member, you're only allowed to go to Kaiser if you have any issues, and she wasn't. And so that was the issue, is that I think, summarizing what he said, it's a lot more detailed what he said, but the access to even healthcare is not that great, including schools. He said there's no books, there's hardly any a classroom attention being paid to in the city.
No, and the main problem is we have a gigantic crisis of leadership in the city. And I say this stiltingly because these are folks that I've known for a long time, but this is professional. It's not personal. And there was a time we did better.
Can I give you my input in terms of, you know, as you know, I was a previous elected official, and what I noticed when I was on the board of directors of a water district is that you had people.
Hey, by the way, you tell them in full what your role was.
I was president of the water district, and so we're policymakers.
Hey, Jeff, listen. Yeah. Tell them where you were on the water district. What city? What time? Give them the time.
It was in. It covered 3 or 4 different cities. It was in the San Gabriel Valley in LA County, and it covered Baldwin Park, parts of West Covina, Irwindale, and a small portion of Azusa. Now, Irwindale is famous even in Oakland because that's where the Raiders were trying to go to in the late 80s. But having said that, what I noticed is that people who wanted to be elected and subsequently got elected weren't people that had, and without putting people down, didn't have the educational background to be in that position. And of course, as an elected official, you don't necessarily have to have one. But when you're dealing with policy and you're dealing with essentially people's lives when it comes to the quality of the water, you want somebody that can think, you know, kind of connect their brain cells together and not argue with each other about petty stuff. And so it was a power play for a lot of people that wanted to be on that board of directors. It was a power play because of this. And then I don't know if this may be the case, it's because of the perks that you receive as an elected official. You have some stature within those communities, right? But you also get medical benefits, and you also get stipends, right? Sometimes you get the full stipend, whatever hundreds of dollars there is, even if you attend a 5-minute meeting, right?
Yeah.
And so people were clawing at each other to get elected for those positions, and many people didn't have an interest in doing what you were supposed to do as an elected official. They just wanted the benefits and the money and the stature. And so I wonder if that's the case that's happening in Oakland.
I agree with you. And we have this kind of wave of activists that have taken positions. But the problem with activists, as Oakland has discovered them, activists do not really care about the nuts and bolts of government law with respect to redevelopment or economics or anything. They have these determined ideas, and they'll say this is neoliberal, which is a misapplication of the term and all this. And it's kind of like, hey, just look, fix the government. You're not there to be an assembly person or a senator. You are there to be a council person. And that's really another problem that's huge. And I'm not saying it's the case, well, across the board, but in the past, we've had more active council members at fixing government. The one person in the government, actually couple, I'll praise Lauren Taylor of District 6 and at-large council member Rebecca Kaplan. Trevor Reed's just getting involved. She's got her dad, who is Larry Reed, who knows how to deal with this stuff. Let me get to these comments here. I believe Zachary Ray was asking something early on. Sorry, Zachary, I'm just getting this. Says, what do you think will happen in Oakland? I don't like to guess, Zachary, about this. And the reason I don't is because of my background and with projects like that are complex. I will tell you what has happened specifically and in detail and what should happen going forward, in my opinion, from there. First of all, I told the mayor, and the mayor's doing something that I really applaud her for doing. She's keeping arguments with Major League Baseball out of the media. She made that mistake a couple of weeks ago. And I love the fact that when I chimed in and said, please don't do that, she stopped doing it. I said, keep your disagreements back channel. Let us yell, right? But when you go to the media there's opinions we don't need to know. She's the mayor. She needs to understand what it means to cultivate power. And this is what's bothering me about how Libby has conducted this. This is a series of power plays done to her, but she does not have a track record of doing a power play back to someone else. Now power plays can come in a number of different ways. Now, one power play that if I were mayor, I would get on the phone, I would call Kamala Harris, and I would ask her to make a statement regarding Major League Baseball's actions. And hopefully she does it. And maybe Libby has done that. But my point is, I would do that in a heartbeat. I would ask Congresswoman Barbara Lee to take up talks regarding the yanking of Major League Baseball's exemption from antitrust, because then it gives owners freedom of movement. And so even if the A's are talking about moving, hey, we can get somebody else ourselves and move forward. All right. That's the kind of hardball you have to play. And it doesn't mean that when she does it, it has to look like it came from her. If anything, the best power plays are the ones where the world kind of changes in your favor. And even though you had something to do with it, it's not obvious to others that you did. Okay. Those are the kind of power plays that she needs to do. Whether or not she'll do them now, I think there is that possibility, because again, she's not fighting with the A's in public. She's not fighting with Major League Baseball in public. And that is a good thing. That's different than how we handled it for the Raiders. And I really attribute that to her listening to when I started yelling, and I was yelling like a madman because I'm tired of this and I wanted to see her succeed, because in 2009, I'm the one who said, hey, you should run for mayor. I didn't think a number of things that she did, she was going to do. But I own that. That was my idea before anybody else thought of it. I scared the heck out of a number of people when I dropped this April Fool column that she was going to run for mayor in 2010 when she was running for council. Because I thought that she would be a great, friend of Oakland who knew everybody in town, because we hadn't had that. We hadn't had that for quite some time. Last time we had anybody that was close to that was Lionel, and then to somewhat of a lesser extent Elihu. But then we went out and we got Jerry and went way away from it. And we got Ron Delms and we're still away from it. And Jean kind of brought us back home in that she's, a child of Oakland and everything, and the neighbor. But Jean had a kind of a patrician take that didn't sit well with a lot of people. And Jean Quan was the kind of person that would go before a group of business people in Chinatown and say, well, hey, we are the most read, and basically our news is better than anybody else's, and basically make statements that were uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. And she was a progressive, but her progressive bent was kind of put off or diminished by her air of being detached and kind of above it all rather than concerned. But there were times when that would go away. Like, for example, most notably when she had the press conference at 41st and International Boulevard that I went to and covered, because you had a number of women there that were concerned about sex trafficking and human trafficking going on in Oakland. And they just decided to take an open stand about it with the Oakland police. Bravo. Okay. That was, I think, one of Jean's finest hours. All right. But when it comes to economic development and sports, try as she might, she did try, and she owned and defended Coliseum City at my Oakland Sports Forum back in 2014, but 2013. But Jean, it wasn't enough, okay? And so Libby was really, the idea was, she's got all these friends who all went to Skyline and all this is going to work out nice. Okay, so that's just give you a picture of what happened. And so This is recall Libya. I don't know. I know I'm not for that. I really hold out hope that she'll get better. Thomas Beltran. Hey, Thomas, how you doing? He says, Oakland could not even secure his Costco with the mayor and city council. But actually, Thomas, we do have, and we do have big blocks. That's another story. I don't want to wade into the weeds there. And Zachary says, Zinni, I agree with you earlier. I wouldn't mind if we see Coliseum City if it's still in the talks. Let me know what you think. Yeah, it's definitely still, it hasn't went away. Coliseum City is, but here's the biggest problem with Coliseum City. And it's something I want everybody to really pay attention to. There is a study that actually I referred to. If you go to Oakland News Now and you type, it's the Portland piece, the Portland column, the Portland Post, blog post, not column, it's a blog post. That blog post has within it a discussion regarding the water table problem. You know about that? You know about that, Joseph?
No.
Yeah. Well, there is a study that let me call it up for you because I hate to I shouldn't do that to you. Mention it and then not show you the study. But this study basically in detail, it didn't outline, but in detail describes the rising sea level problem in Oakland that Dave Cavaz talked about again and again and again, but not enough because the media here, that's why I'm filling in the blank as media, but the media in the past has just been too surface to really focus in depth about it. There is, I'm going to break this out in another post, but there is this study that you're about to see, which spells out primarily that in 19 years from now, 19 years, the water table is such that the water will rise 72 inches, okay? 72 inches of the Coliseum.
Wow.
Yeah, 70, I'll repeat, 72 inches.
That's 6 feet.
That's right. That's 6 feet. That's 6 feet. Now, Howard Terminal has the same problem, but the infrastructure cost to fix it is such that it takes up more land area at Howard Terminal because Howard Terminal goes to the water, and the other side of Howard Terminal, there's another block or so before you reach the freeway. But in total, it's far less in acreage than it is down where the Coliseum is. The problem at the Coliseum is not just confined to the Coliseum. It goes all the way to the Oakland airport. This is an enormous problem, folks. It is enormous. And it's why the A's don't want to build there. It's not that it's not sexy or anything like that. No, it's the fact that
you're sinking into the ocean.
Yeah, it's a sea level problem, okay? And there's been no effort to fix it. All right, this gets back to our leadership again. There's been no effort to fix it. And so Howard Terminal has always been an alternative. But for those who scream about, like the East Bay Stadium Alliance that scream about the Coliseum, it's really irresponsible for them to do that. And
that's one of the reasons why I think city governments should put policies in terms of who gets elected. Have somebody who has a educational background, an engineering background, a environmental background, and you come collectively together and you could solve some of these issues. And I think that's the problem, not with just the city of Oakland, but many cities, smaller cities, specifically in California, is that you have them not being able to deal with governmental issues the way they have been dealt with in the past. And I think that goes with the whole situation that I told you about being there for all of the wrong reasons, for stature, for economic reasons, and for the benefits.
Yeah, and pay because it's so expensive to live in the Bay Area. Here is the study I told you about. It's Oakland Preliminary Sea Level Rise Roadmap. It's also a Scribd file that you can find in Scribd. What you do is if you go to Scribd, you can just simply you can go down there. You can type Oakland Sea Level Rise Plan. Okay, and there is its Scribd. All right, but I'm going to page through so that you can see what I am talking about here in terms of there's a map that you should take a look at that in one fell swoop shows you the problem that the A's are facing or anyone faces that would plan to build down there in the future. And this gets to Coliseum City. All right. When you see it, it's going to change your view of this whole situation. And also, the A's are understandably pissed off why they would be pushed, to consider. And here it is. You see all that blue? Can you see that, Joseph?
Yes.
All right. All of that blue, folks, okay, it includes Alameda in gray. It means it's above sea level. But look, the light blue around it is an expected sea level rise by 48 inches. That's the light blue, okay? The gray is where it's manageable, but and not to the point where it's development prohibitive, if you will. But then you have this area that's dark blue, all right? And that dark blue area, if we zoom in, it's above 72 inches, okay? And so let's go in a little bit more, and then if we can see, it allows us, yeah, okay, now we can. And we can go in and have a better look at the Coliseum area in this context, okay? We continue to zoom in without, there we go. Okay, that's the Coliseum where the arrow is. You see that, Joseph?
Yes.
That's the arena that the arrow is on. Look at that intense blue. That's right around the arena. That includes the parking. The light blue is the rest of the land. So you've got, and then across the freeway, you've got property that's entirely in blue. And then you've got basically all the surrounding area, including the neighborhoods up to around almost 73rd that are in blue. This is a problem that's expected to occur 19 years from now, but it will not be in a fashion where it goes and all of a sudden it ramps up like that. It will be gradual.
Yeah, incremental.
Incremental. Now, you would say the best way to do this is new landfill. This is something that people have talked about for years.
And then the other thing that maybe no one's talked about, because it's not a very pleasant thing to think about, is what about a large earthquake that could potentially affect that?
Right. That's right. That's the other consideration. So, again, and then not only that, think about how much of this area is low income and the danger that the people who are put in, who are down there and will be in for the next generation.
And that might be the thing. You think about that statement you just made. When you think about a lot of cities that are heavily populated by minorities, that's the last place anybody wants to redevelop or wants to put the city money in, because they're not valued. And that's the thing the city got to realize, is that, why aren't you fixing this problem? Is it because of the demographics there? I mean, I would point the fingers at that, because I bet you any wealthy places of Oakland, some of those situations would have been fixed in a heartbeat.
I think you cut out there, Joseph. You want to repeat that?
No, I think when you think about, I'm not sure what you lost or what you didn't hear, but I was talking about when you mentioned the demographics, that low income area, that's the last people it seems like they ever want to help. Because I bet you if this happened up in Berkeley Hills or Oakland surrounding areas, they would have fixed that right away.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, goes back to problems that are longstanding that leadership has not addressed. And again, this is, we talk about Oakland not having the will and the initiative to complete big projects. This is the largest example of that. This is the biggest project that Oakland has to complete that Oakland hasn't even started on. Okay, hasn't even started on. Now, in fairness to the city, at least it has a plan to lay out where this is. All right, it's called the sea level rise plan. Now the question is, in the document, does it get us to a solution later? It talks about vulnerability and risk. All right, in terms of findings. And it says that it's projected that climate change will cause the bay to rise 16 inches by mid-century and 55 inches by the end of the century. As shown in Table 2, the study found that with 16 inches of sea level rise, very few Oakland residents would be exposed to inundation from daily high tide, while approximately 6,000 would be exposed to wind waves during a storm event. With 55 inches of sea level rise, however, nearly 1,400 residents will be exposed to daily high tide inundation, and nearly 9,000 will be exposed to wind waves during a stormy event. Approximately 150,000 people work in Oakland with 16 inches of sea level rise. Nearly 1,000 employees would be exposed to daily high tide inundation, and approximately 4,000 would be exposed to storm flooding, event flooding. With 55 inches of sea level rise, over 12,000 employees will be exposed to daily high tide inundation. That's daily, and over 32,000 or 21% of Oakland's working population will be exposed to storm event flooding. Okay? And then it goes on to say the study assesses the exposure of community facilities and services and so on. So you get the idea, all right? And that's what the study is about. It lays out in detail, what the problem is. And but again, this has not been at all. This is key context for sea level rise roadmap actions. There are guidelines and policies here about coordination and effective policies. And this is all great. The trouble is that we haven't implemented this, okay? And it needs to be updated as well. Now, guess what we have coming on the horizon that could really, fix this? And that is, and this points to the need for money from the infrastructure plan. All right. Okay. So that's why this is important. I'm going to give a more pointed focus on this on another one, but my point is, thank you, Raiders SP. My point is that, and as you can see, the Oakland Athletics have a very, very sound reason for not wanting to be at Howard Terminal. And the city of Oakland hasn't done anything to address that main problem. And so yet it wants to just push the Athletics and anybody else that might even think of buying that property down there with no plan to deal with this flooding issue. I mean, what I showed you as a plan is more of a kind of a identification of the problem rather than a true plan that says by year X we will do, action Y, Z, and W. Okay, that's not what that plan is, because there would have been cost attached to it. We would have had a bond issue that was floated for it, and not only would we have been on our way, but you would have heard the A's, I believe, singing a different tune about Coliseum. But right now, Dave Cavall and the A's have a very sound reason for not wanting to be at the Coliseum, because the useful life down there of even a new stadium without a platform, his estimate to build a platform down there would be about $400 million. Now you would say, okay, what about Howard Terminal? And as I said, Howard Terminal has the same problem, but it's much less land area. You fix the problem, you have more money available to fix the problem around in the district. And if you fix the problem, that's it, because the land area is so comparatively small. Coliseum area is huge. The Oakland and the area outside of it is the Coliseum Business District. That's Port of Oakland land. All right. All that's huge. Okay. So it says getting a publicly financed stadium is impossible today. The last team to do that was the Padres. Well, here's the point, Jim. That's really not the conversation here. All right. And the reason is that, and I say this again, and I'm going to say this until the cows come home, and even when they come home, fucking read SB 293. Why? Because the tax increment that is produced in the district, if you take what Dave Cavall said about field build out at $12 billion in that area, that's a $9 billion redevelopment revenue haul. Billion, all right? That's at full build out. We will never see we will never get to full build out in our lives, folks. That's like a wish list. But Dave didn't understand the numeric dynamics of the project. If he did, he wouldn't have put that in there. So and not only that, Dave Cavall should not be the point person for this. The point person for this should be with the city, and it should be somebody that ultimately runs the agency that SB 293 calls for, that collects the tax issue, bonds for the money for the bond issue, and issues the bond. All right, and structures the bond, and then shapes the district. The agency should do all that. And it's not being done, and the mayor has not relinquished her role in getting her face out there to talk about this. And Dave hasn't either. There needs to be one person with a city that does it. Like when we were working on the Raiders, we had Ezra, and they let Ezra do it. Okay? Now, yeah, I understand there are people who have problems with how Ezra may not have shared data, but we learned from that. It didn't mean that we didn't have to have people who were in charge who are public officials. There is a legion and a history and a legacy of people who steered economic development projects. It doesn't matter whether they failed or not. A current example is a person that I favor and have been a big hero of mine, and that's Stephen Hill, who was the governor's head of economic development under the previous governor, Richard, and the governor of Nevada, who's actually a great guy. But Stephen Hill is someone whose work I followed for years, and I was pleased as punch, even as critical as I was of what was going on, to be able to meet him at the groundbreaking for the Las Vegas Convention Center. All right. These are folks who understand how to marshal government involvement on different levels. All right. They're the fulcrum. So that when someone like, I believe someone was criticizing, that Oakland doesn't have, or you have the problem is you have these layers of government. That's not the problem. And people who say that have no freaking idea what they're talking about. In fact, one person who said that was some radio dude who, is in an area. You have Los Angeles County, and yeah, you have Los Angeles City, but you have these different cities that you have to work with, like Inglewood and every place else. You know what I'm talking about, Joseph.
Yeah.
All right. And that's not the point. The point is you have a leader. You have somebody that understands how to bring together all of these organizations. Or like, look at Phil Tagami on the private side, who's also worked as a consultant to the city. He understands, longtime friend of mine, how to bring different agencies together, or the need to, make sure you contacted BCDC for, waterfront issues and so on. Okay. That's what you need. That's a special kind of person. In New York, when New York was working on the Olympics plan, it was Dan Doctoroff. When I was working on the Super Bowl, my counterpart in Jacksonville was Heather Surface. Okay. I can go on and on and on. The Oakland does not have a designated person that does that. And I've tried to explain it to the mayor again and 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 a freaking again. And it just goes through seemingly one ear and out the other. You need to have, we had it with Fred Blackwell. That was the last person that we had. That was Gene Kwan. But Fred saw the writing on the wall, figured that there was a better place to be at and running the San Francisco Foundation, and he bolted knowing that Gene was not going to win re-election, and Libby was. Okay. He was the last czar we had, and I thought he was a good one. We don't have those anymore in Oakland because we have too many people that want to have the limelight rather than giving it effectively to the right official. That's what you do. That's what these folks go to school for.
Yeah, and when you put yourself out there and you don't know what you're talking about, it just looks like you're disorganized.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get some of these comments. I'm telling you, MLB needs to let set of rules. And Zach says, do you think Oakland would be a main attraction city if it was developed in the right political issues? Oakland is already a main attraction city. There's nothing wrong with Oakland in terms of its topography. Leadership is fixable. We've got a government that led by Governor Newsom, who's done a fantastic job. I don't care what anyone says. You find another state that has a $75 billion surplus. I challenge you. Okay, where they can say to every renter and landlord, we will pay 100% of your losses. You hear about that, Joseph?
Yes.
That's huge. Okay, just pay your taxes. Just file your taxes. Just file your taxes. Just file. Okay, that's all you got to do. That's huge. The Raiders, how you doing? He says, if Oakland upgraded Hagenberger with better done on food, places, clubs, bars, for the games, a stadium would have been built. We don't have nothing, Hagenberg, nothing. And not only that, we don't. And also something else. If we had done that upgrade that you're talking about, we would have built that platform. We've been fighting around on this for some time now. It says, let's talk. Unless you have a Green Bay model, you can't force the owners of the team where he can operate his business. Well, there are other ways to do it. Okay. And again, that requires your knowledge of politics. Look, you're saying this in the context of us having the vice president of the United States as a person whose lever we can pull. Pull it. You've got the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, a lever you can pull. Pull it. So I don't accept that. This is about cultivating power. This is about understanding how to cultivate power. Okay. That's what this is about. It says, do you think California can do a universal income for everyone like Newsom has been taught? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's another subject, but yeah, I think we can do that. And I think the way to do it in terms of a key is, again, tax increment financing. Why do I keep coming back to that? Because our normal redevelopment, our normal dollar of property tax payment goes in the Oakland context, the BART, AC Transit, the flood control district, and the school district, okay? But then you would take that dollar using increment financing, you could float a bond issue and then divvy out the money from that bond issue, okay? And then
give me a minute, I'll be right back.
Oh, sure, okay. And then expand it from there. So my point is that there is a way that can be done. All right. So, what are your thoughts? If A's are gone, even with Howard Terminal, yes vote. Others, what you're asking me is, can we do Howard Terminal even if the A's leave? Yeah, we can. The way it's, but the problem is that It has to be the enabling legislation has to be written. Need to make okay. Need that. The legislation has to be rewritten because it says that it was written for the Oakland Athletics, and that's why this is such a nice lawsuit opportunity, because this document was written for the A's. It specifically says that the baseball stadium for the Oakland Athletics cannot be treated as a publicly owned facility. Why? Because it's expected that the A's are going to pay property taxes. Now, if the mayor has managed to walk us into a corner where the A's are under the impression that they're getting a property tax abatement, guess what? That kills tax increment financing. Now, you would say, and they would say, no, it doesn't. I would say it does. You know why? Because there's only one structure down there that we have any certainty is going to be built, and that's the damn ballpark. It's privately financed. So they need to cough up that property tax. They're going to get concession revenue and revenue from everything else they can think of through that. And the property tax is 1% 1%. They talking about moving other places. The property tax is going to be higher. All right. So if they want to make that noise, all right, let them make that noise. They'll be fools to do it. Where else are they going to get a 1% property tax? Are they going to get an abatement in those other areas in the middle of a pandemic? All right. I wouldn't let them just walk. I would make noise to embarrass them publicly, but not directly, and say, oh, by the way, and I would put it out there like this campaign. And the other thing that I would do, I would get a nice little war chest, and I would go to these other cities, and I would simply buy the best land that's available for them to build a baseball stadium for myself in secret. And I'll block them out so they would have no place to go. That's how you get this stuff done. Okay. I'm serious about that. Says, oh, you're back. Okay. Joseph, you're back? Let's see here.
Yes, I'm in the background.
Okay, cool. Here he goes. Okay. Zachary says, so what about the homeless situation? It's getting worse. Well, that's the whole point, though. And that's why it's very important to read. I'm going to say this again, folks. SB 293 Skinner. All right. This is the Project Bible. Okay. If you read this, you won't be asking me about homelessness. Learn this. This is the Bible for the damn project.
And I think the homeless problem is a California problem. You won't believe.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on a second. I need to emphasize this. Everything starts here. Have you read it, Joseph?
No, I haven't. The Senate Bill 293. Yeah, I need to read it.
Yeah, read it. And why do I say so much read it, folks? Because this will set up. Let me go back to this map, all right, and explain why it's so important to read this. You see that area there? All right. Let me go up here. Excuse me. And to another map that will better emphasize my point. Well, there's Brooklyn Basin. Another example of how to combat sea level rise. And here's the Coliseum. Okay, here's this is what they were talking about, potential seawall site. All right. You see that? That's around the Coliseum. Okay. And the Coliseum specific plan was adopted in 2015, and it established policies that would take that into account in the area. All right. And so, but here's the problem. The plan is without a cost. And that's what was scaring Dave the heck out. Okay. There was no plan to deal with that in terms of the city and the county or paying for it through redevelopment, excuse me. But I digress. Let me go back here to what we were talking about. There, that's what I'm looking at. All right, you see this? This is the entire city of Oakland. The arrow that I'm pointing to is Howard Terminal, which would be over here. just about right there. Okay. The way SB 293 is written, the money the tax district makes can be used anywhere in the entire city of Oakland. Look at that, for affordable housing, childcare, services, anything that's of a community-wide significance. That's the way the bill's written. And you put that in your plan. All right. That would make it the most effective and powerful redevelopment plan. And it specifically mentions the homeless issue, and in addressing that the problem. We would have more than enough money, by one count, 550 million. If we were talking about a 40-year bond issue based on a 4% per annum rate of growth over 40 years, as I said, all right, that's 1.5 billion, assuming simply using the stadium at $2 billion for assessed value base year, okay? And you could you figure debt coverage ratio of 2, float a bond of about 700 million. That's a lot of money, both to deal with the infrastructure issue and the other issues citywide. $700 million. Now, for those people who are rightly concerned about using all of that money for the infrastructure, look, the president is working on his $4 trillion infrastructure plan. You want to see another example of how we're not aggressive? We're not making our own wish list, our own plan for that. When you plan for something, you plan for it to come into being. You don't wait for it and then say, oh, the money is here. You plan for it now, and you start doing the ask, you start doing the politicking and everything else. That's how you get this stuff done. Okay? Do you think Caitlyn Jenner, I don't want to talk about Caitlyn. That's not my concern. All right? This is my concern. Okay? This is my concern. All right? So I'm not going to come off that, because that's the other thing is, all right, I want a Jack Bull focus on this. I don't care about anything other than people reading this damn document. That's all I care about, because a lot of people don't know it. The A's don't know it. The mayor doesn't know it. The staff doesn't know it. Know this chapter and verse. When I started building models for the city of Oakland, when I was working for the mayor's office, I go to the law library, at Cal, alumni board, 7 years, and I would read the California Health and Safety Code, section 33000 to 33999, and I memorized it chapter and verse. Why? Because when you're building a spreadsheet model, as was my job then for redevelopment, you needed to know the law. That was the redevelopment. Now it's dormant. That whole section was ripped out when Jerry got rid of redevelopment, okay? It was ripped out. But then I understand how to build the right spreadsheet model, because the law would say, for example, hey, it's 1% property tax. You have to take out the taxing agencies, things that you should know. And then it would tell you what you couldn't do. Like, for example, you couldn't use it for services unless it was spent on the redevelopment plan. And then, of course, it had to be, what kind of services. Then you had to figure out how much of the increment you could take from that. Then you had to use part of the increment for administrative costs, which is what which really irks me about what the mayor is saying, because, I'll bet you Libby got the A's to pay for some of the staff costs for the city. You know what? You establish the redevelopment agency, because that's what it is. Establish the tax increment financing zone, start collecting the monies, and then design your bond issue. And guess what? You pay yourself back from the money from the tax for the bond issue. Okay? You can do that. We've done it for decades. We got to get our act together. There is no excuse for this. It is Joseph, I've talked enough. I'm about talked out. I got an hour and 9 minutes. It's 1:17 In the morning, I want to come back tomorrow and talk about the NFL schedule. I'm behind. Go ahead. Your thoughts?
Oh, well, I just, I initially came on for the NFL schedule. Briefly, I'm just happy that the Raiders have 2 LA home games that I can attend. They're playing the Rams during preseason, and they're playing the Chargers. And so that's a Raider crowd on both games. So I'm looking forward to that. So that's it. I mean, we can cover that tomorrow in more detail. But, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised of the 2 games I'm looking forward to.
SB 293 Skinner. This, I want everybody to read this. Everybody. Folks, when I grew up, I didn't have this thing. I didn't have the internet. I had 600 books and magazines in my room. When I was 8 years old, I read a book by heart about metropolitan, the modern metropolis by Hans Blumenfeld. That was my introduction to city planning. I read that thing chapter and verse. That's how I was introduced to the innovation that was of transit-oriented development in Montreal. What does that mean? It means building apartments and offices over transit stops. Ooh, you know what's so funny today now is the younger folks read that and they think that they thought of it first. I put to someone on Twitter, actually, that was Hans Blumenfeld, like back in 1967. Okay. Read, folks. Freaking read, will ya? Please. I mean, it's just driving me crazy that people don't read anymore.
Well, and for me, it was a challenge when I was a kid. I remember in 8th grade and going into the 9th, I challenged myself to try to read Dostoevsky. Those aren't the easiest books to read.
You're a better man than me, uncle.
But I mean, it was a challenge, and I hate when somebody tells me I can't do something because that just fires me up. But with regards to something you said earlier, and I wanted to chime in, but you're on a roll when you're talking about Mayor Schaaf and how they maybe spew too many things out in the media. It reminds me of my favorite movie, The Godfather. When The Godfather, who was so powerful, and he wasn't a verbose or very violent person, he was a very smart, cunning, and business person. That's what made him powerful. And one thing he always told his son, Sonny, who was a wild stallion, he told his son, Sonny, never tell anybody outside the family what you're thinking.
Right.
And absolutely. that's the key right there, because you keep it in-house.
Yep. Absolutely. You keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer. That's it. So he says, I like that one. He says, I believe you should become mayor of Oakland. Seriously, I think you can do that work for you. I got my mom here. I've got my mom in Zenny 62 Media, and I am the kind of person that I went to school to be is the kind of person I was talking about, that specialist. I was that for the Super Bowl. I loved it. I know you pay, and the reason I say that is because as an elected official, look, do I think I could be a great mayor of Oakland? Absolutely. Do I think I could be the best mayor Oakland ever had in its history? Yes. But I don't want to, the time isn't right for me. Okay? I'm not going to make the mistake, as one other person did, of running for mayor when their mother needed their help. Okay? I don't roll that way. I started this organization. I've got great people a part of it. That's it. But I don't roll that way. This is, my private Idaho, if you will. Okay. When Robert Bob tabbed me to head the Super Bowl effort, that was one of the greatest moments of my life. And I engineered that because, hey, SMG was blocking us. And they lied to us. They told, the person who's the head of the Coliseum told us that they didn't have the drawings and said that my friend Steve McFadden, who was the architect for the Coliseum back when Bob Quintello was the president, that he had them and he didn't. They're trying to get him in criminal trouble. He was a white guy, great guy. Okay. That wasn't the issue. It was just that you had some people over there who were just not right. Okay. You know what happened? I didn't believe that story. I said, why would, and I told Robert Bob this, I said, Robert, why would we have, well, I would say Mr. Bob, but I said, why would we have a multi-billion-dollar facility ran without drawings for the fire marshal? Does that make any sense to you? So I called every place. And then I got a call from a guy named Monir Heblu with HNTB that designed the east side of the stadium for the return of the Raiders, right? Zinni, I've got your drawings. I was like, yes, yes. Then he called me back later that same day and he said, Sally Roach, who represented SMG at the Coliseum, who was a thorn in my side at the time. I hope she's well, but it's true. Okay, that's my opinion and I have a right to it. And it's true. She told Monir that I had to go through her to get them. The same person that said that she didn't have them. I called Robert Bob and I said, you need to fire Sally. Or I'll go to ABC television, because that's how it was in those days, and I'll drop the bomb on what she's done. I got my drawings. And then Robert held an emergency meeting and put me in charge of bringing the Super Bowl to Oakland. And we turned everything around and we went from basically no chance at all to one of the three finalists, Jacksonville, Oakland, and Miami. And that is why the NFL to this day still keeps me in. What's more than that? What happened was that when we were getting the vote that gave Jacksonville the right to host the 2005 Super Bowl, Joe Brown, who was then the government affairs head for the NFL, said, Zinni, if there's anything we can do for you, let us know. Because among other things, Jerry Brown had called the NFL and had a representative call and asked them the same questions that I already given them the answers to. Jim Steig knew it. They called me and they said, hey, look, your guys are going behind your back. Okay? You hear what I'm saying? All right? This is stuff that I had to deal with. This is the stuff I had to deal with. So I called Joe a few years later after I created Oakland's first blog, and I was going down to myself and Keith Dubkowski and Anya Krotz to cover the Raiders draft. And I said, hey, I'd love to come to New York and cover the NFL draft. He said 2 words, you're in. That's how it happened. Because what people don't seem to realize is that there are only a handful of people in NFL history who were responsible when they form a bid, and the host committees and the bidding committees, as it was done then, now it's internal, they're responsible for the NFL's key event, the Super Bowl. We design the look for it. Doesn't matter if it's myself, or as I mentioned, Heather Surface, or the late, great Robert Dale Morgan, who died of a heart attack at 50, who was responsible for Super Bowls in Houston and Atlanta. And I believe he actually assisted when push came to shove in Jacksonville as well, even with Heather Surface. All right. Robert Dale Morgan was the epitome of smooth. Had the pleasure of meeting him. These are people that get things done. These are the bureaucrats that maybe you hear about once in a while, and sometimes they become people like Robert Moses. Didn't have a great track record, but if you're talking about cultivating power, Robert Moses is a model you've got to read about. Separate yourself from what he did. It's the model. These are public officials that understand how to move government to get things done. They know their lane, they have a specific project, and they move forward and they get it done. That's what I went to school to be. Okay? That's what I do. And so this company that I built is an expression of that in a different way. It's an expression of that in a media way. But we can pivot in a number of directions we want to. And it gives me the ability to explain to you how government works from that perspective, because that's what I went to school to do. So it has a certain unique value. Okay? So there you go. So no, Even though I think I would be the best mayor Oakland ever had, the timing is not right for me, and I'm very happy. All right. All right. Oh, by the way, what else we got here? Don't reads. Yeah, it is. It's gone on for like a long time. Thank you. Oh yeah, I'm always open the conversation. Absolutely. Thanks. Oh, John, I hope this all works out. But I'm more interested in the techniques. I am far more interested in the techniques of it working out. You know, getting involved, getting hands dirty in different ways, and moving forward. All right, Joseph.
Yes.
Close us out.
Well, it was a great, interesting conversation. Not knowing the minutia of the situation in Oakland, I think I learned a lot just by your comments. But I was able to. I'm glad I'm able to put my 2 cents where I felt I was able to give you some information with regards to how I felt about how some of those city governments working. But it's very unfortunate because you have a community that I feel for. Not to draw comparisons, but the only thing I could come close to is the feeling I had as a kid, not knowing any different, you know, as a kid growing up and having the Raiders share moving away. There was a sadness to that for me. I still love the Oakland Raiders, right? Regardless of where they went. But you think about how impactful that is to a city that virtually lost the team twice. You have Oakland Athletics, the Oakland A's, potentially threatening, if you want to say that, to move out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Warriors left, and that to me was a greater shock than anything because you didn't, in my opinion, didn't pay enough respect to the city by leaving to San Francisco. You know, and I really think they thought they were going to get away with it because the team's called the Golden State Warriors and not the Oakland Warriors.
Right.
So I thought, let's just easily transition over to San Francisco. No one's going to say anything. But we know as well as you do how competitive both those cities are. It's going to get noticed, and it was. So you know that's very sad to hear that potentially is going to happen. So I feel for the city. I enjoyed my times that I spent there. Like I said, the times I spent in at Berkeley, you know, I lived in Oakland for the time that I was there. You know, and I enjoyed the city. There's a lot of rich cultural significance in the city of Oakland, and I think that part of that cultural significance is athletics, and particularly the Raiders and the A's.
Yep, that's right. Well said. All right, folks. Tomorrow we will talk about the Raiders' schedule and the NFL schedule. We'll be back, and so we can devote the appropriate time to it. In the interim, Joseph, I encourage you to make a blog about the schedule. I think you actually did, though, didn't you?
No, I did about the number changes. You know, I wasn't here when the schedule got released, and it's possible I'll do one. It's just it's been a little crazy for me, so I hadn't had a chance to do that.
I'm gonna do one about the ticket prices.
Oh, I didn't want to think about that.
Yeah.
You know, the most economic one for me might be that preseason game out here, you know, at SoFi, because usually the tickets aren't expensive, but the fact that the Raiders are playing, it always goes up.
Well, I've got my eye on some. We'll see how things shake out. Anyway,
Okay.
Hey, we'll see you backstage. See you,
All right.
everybody. Thank you for a fantastic program. That ends this broadcast, and if you haven't done so before, please subscribe to Zenny62 and bookmark oaklandnewsnow.com.